Tex Mars is with us on the third Monday of each week. It is this nice tonight. Tex, one of the great people of our time. I'm really honored always to have him on the program. I always learn. And he has single-handedly researched and produced, without question, the most significant body of books and DVDs that I can think of offhand in the field of researching the global elite and, of course, trying to understand world Zionism and Jewish Zionism and Jews in general. When you look at the number, and look this up, Jewish world population, it's 0 point something, 0.3, 0.2. It depends on who you're consulting. I mean, it's a fly speck on an elephant. And if you have any question about it, the names tell the story. Yes, a lot of Jews used to change their names. Some still do. Jon Stewart, for example, of the television comedy channel fame, his news satire program, is Jewish. Jon Stewart doesn't sound Jewish, but that goes way back. There's so many Hollywood celebrities who've changed their names. Jon Stewart's brother, by the way, is the president of the New York Stock Exchange. So, yeah, you can talk bloodlines, but more than that, you can talk money lines. That's where it's all connected. Tex is going to talk tonight about some interesting things about Jews on the planet. We could do the same thing about Catholics or Buddhists or any other group, but since Jews wield such ungodly power for the numbers that they actually represent on the planet, they warrant special attention. Facts are facts. They're very proud of their power, so we should spend a little time understanding that. Hello, Tex, and welcome back.
Hey, Jeff, it's great to be with you again.
Thank you, my friend.
You know, I would like to talk tonight about not just the Jews, but myths.
Oh, they're...
M-Y-T-H-S, fables, myths of the Jews. Because there are a lot of myths and fables out there, and as an evangelical Christian, I've heard so many over the years, you know, the miracle of this or the miracle of that. And
sure.
So I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm even considering writing a book on, just entitled it, The Myths of the Jews, because most of these are, in fact, myths, but they sound good when you first hear them, but then you do some research, you know, you scratch beneath the veneer, you find out it's not quite the way it's...
You know, let me say something, if I might, just to underscore what you're saying. In this day and age of such fast-paced news and developments on the Internet, very few people spend any time at all researching or verifying or vetting anything. They read it, they accept it, and what do? They hit their forward key, and they send it to their best friend, especially alarming pieces of disinformation. There's a story running around now about FEMA allegedly preparing for Region 3, something terrible in October, by October 1st. And this story is running all over the place. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I asked Jim Kerwin, to look into it. I said, Jim, look into this for me. No one researches anything. Find out who these people are. Well, it was a woman narrating this piece, and she was alluding to a senator told me that he has received word that. Well, okay. The senator was a state senator, and he'd been out of politics, it turns out, for over 30 years. She made him sound like he was a heavyweight big senator of today in some state. And when they tried to find out who this woman was, it was a dead trail. They couldn't find out. So the point is here, we know that the government and our tax dollars are being spent to hire fakes, frauds, and manipulators to float stories just like this on the Internet, so the sheep go into a panic and start running around in circles chasing their non-existent tails. It gets silly after a while, but and I urge people, please don't jump on the bandwagon of these fear-mongering, fake, fraud, hoaxed stories. And that's a myth, too. That a lot of this stuff is true. It's not. It's a myth. And again, the Jewish population in the world is 0.2 at best %.
That's right. But they've got some important friends, Jeff. You know, in the United States of America, the big bully, you know, they drag around with them, and he does a pretty good job in the Middle East and some other places. But I've really ferreted out 9 myths, and I don't know if we'll get to all of those tonight. If we just get to 4 or 5, it'd be great.
Well, we will. Let's go.
All right, great. Well, the first one, of course, is the biggest of all. It's the Jews are the eternal people. They're the chosen race, the chosen people of God. I mean, think about that. With all the Buddhists and the Hindus, all of these religions in the world, the Jews are the chosen people of God. Now, the problem with that is as you know, I sent you a copy of my newest book entitled DNA Science and the Jewish Bloodline.
Wonderful book.
Yes, science says there is no race called the Jews. And those in the world who call themselves Jews today actually come from Khazaria. And they've never been to Israel. Their ancestors were not, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Right.
The historians have been saying this, Jeff, for many years. We've had Arthur Kessler of the 13th tribe. His book was an outstanding book. We recently had a book, The Invention of the Jewish People, by a well-known Israeli writer, Dr. Shlomo Sand. And even the archaeologists have said the Jews actually are not Jews. They're not Israelites. They're Khazars. So we now have DNA science to confirm this.
Correct.
Of course, the little-time geneticists, the Jews, they're running around saying, oh, no, this can't be. We want to be Jews. They're just dying to be Jews. And when you show them the science and said, well, you're not a Jew, you're a Khazar, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with Khazar. Oh, yes, there is. Because if I can't be a Jew, I don't have the land, and I don't have all these goodies that America and everybody else has given us. And God didn't give us the title to the land. What are we going to do now? So they're really desperate. They're hanging on because the fact is there is no race in the world called Jews. It is a religion called Judaism, but as you know, Marilyn Monroe, Sammy Davis Jr., the black actor, all of these people were also Jews because they practiced Judaism. But there is no race. And if you walk up to a guy and he says, I'm a Jew, he's a Khazar. He's almost always a Khazar. There are a couple little sects, the Mizraim and the Sephardic, but it looks like they're not even Jews either. So it's a hoax. Now, not many Jews really understand this. I really think the elite do. But DNA science confirms. And by the way, in my book, DNA Science and the Jewish Bloodline, I have all the background for it. In fact, it turns out that the Palestinians have more Israelite blood coursing through their veins than do the people who call themselves Jews.
Exactly.
So they're just a bunch of Khazars who, they immigrated from the Caucasus in southern Russia.
Caucasians.
Caucasians. And so they're not even, here's the real problem for them. They say in their book of the laws, the halakha, the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, they don't really obey the Bible. They don't care about the Bible anymore. But they believe in this book written by the rabbis called the Babylonian Talmud. It says Gentiles are inferior. They're like cattle or insects. And the Jews are like gods on earth. God even goes to the rabbis for advice. The problem is now that the Khazars know that they're not Jews, that they're Khazars, well, then they become just like us. They're not special. They're not God's chosen. And they're like, I get letters every day now. This book has only been out, 2 or 3 weeks. I'm getting letters from Jews every day, threatening my life and telling me you can't say that.
Are they really? Well, not surprised.
We've got to be Jews.
Yeah.
One guy said, the hell with the science. They don't even care about the science.
No. It's a state of mind. That's what it is. Now, when did we're going to go through this break, Brett, thanks. When did just to give our listeners a little historical perspective, the Khazars, the Khazarian Empire, when did they adopt Judaism as their formal official state religion? It doesn't go back to the times of Jesus or before or even shortly after. It was hundreds and hundreds of years later that the Khazars said, their king, or whoever he was, their CEO, declared, "We are Jews." And
that's right. Well, that was in the 8th century. So he already had the Muslim world, had the Christian world. He had to choose from the three big religions, and I guess he decided. Now, the reason he chose Judaism was he heard about Solomon. And Solomon had all those wives and all that sex and had this great, grand, court. And he said, "That's what I want." And it turned out this King Bulan of Khazaria, he had over 60 beautiful wives, big harem, and he felt like he was like King Solomon. And, you don't really have that in the Islamic, or certainly the Christian faith. So that was sort of his thing, I want to be like King Solomon, this rich king. And Khazaria was a fairly rich country, and he sort of got away with it. So for a while, until the Russians came down, the Tsars, and conquered Khazaria. Many of the Khazarian people then immigrated over into Poland, Lithuania, Hungary, Romania, Eastern Europe. And that's where Dr. Iran El-Haik, in his DNA studies, found them. But he says they all came from Khazaria. They had never, ever, ever been to Israel, not even set one foot on it. So in 1948, when the so-called Jews went over to Israel, which was Palestine, they said, we're gonna return to Israel. Well, they had never been there, so they couldn't return at all. And in fact, they were communists from Poland, and I'll get into that later. But basically, Tel Aviv was called Little Poland. Little Poland, and the building they operated in, their first government, the Khazar Jews, was actually called the Red House. And they were all known as communists, and communism gave them all their weapons and everything. And Joseph Stalin and our President Truman, on the very same day, recognized them as a nation. So it was basically the commies, Joseph Stalin, and a capitalist. And it turns out that Stalin did it because so many Jews were in Russia that he did them a favor, and he wanted the communists to control Israel. So that's why he took the communists in Poland, gave them all Jewish names, and they went down into Israel. They were all communist Poles. Now imagine that. In fact, here's a little goodie for you. Every prime minister since 1948 of the new refounded Israel has been a Pole. He's been from Poland, except Benjamin Netanyahu. He was born in Israel, but his father, Ben Zion Netanyahu, was a Pole. So they're all a bunch of communists, and they've had Obamacare there all these years. They've got socialist health care and all these things.
Yeah.
They can afford to be communists, though, because their whole economy is propped up by the United States Treasury. So they can afford to be communists. There's no problem at all. They're getting a lot of money. It's been estimated that up to $4.5 trillion since 1948 has been given by America to Israel. So these are just facts. How much money has the Palestinians gotten from the United States? Oh, my goodness. It's like peanuts compared to that.
Not even. Grains of sand. Nothing.
Right. By the way, the Bible. Now, I know your audience doesn't want to hear about the Bible. The Bible confirms. It actually says that genealogies, the studies of race and how much, your DNA and all that, is foolishness. In 1 Timothy 1:4 and Titus 4:99, it says they're fables. Genealogies don't even pay any heed to genealogies. They're unprofitable and vain. And yet these Jews are going wacko. They're going nuts over my book. I mean, I told you about that couple that, the woman put her finger in my face and said, "You better change your name off that book and go into hiding."
When was this, Tex? When was this?
Well, this was 1 week before the book was published. I was at a friend's house, and he had invited this couple over, wanted me to meet them. They were from Romania. I didn't know they were Jewish, or I'm not even sure to this day. But they were very kind, very nice people, and they said, what book are you writing now, Mr. Mars? I said, well, I'm writing DNA Science in the Jewish Bloodline. And my goodness, they like to went crazy. They immediately left. And she stuck her finger in my face and said, change your name off that book and go into hiding.